Chapter 1. This is Joe Newton, better known as Slow Joe. He's in his mid-30s, an ordinary man with nothing extraordinary about him. He always tired, always distant, his face wears the same heavy frown, as if life has drained the colour out of him. He lives alone in a quiet house, with no family, no friends, no one waiting for him. One morning, Joe wakes up to the sound of children laughing outside. He peers through the window and sees a father embracing his kids as they rush toward the waiting school bus. For a moment, Joe lingers there, watching, aching, remembering a childhood he never really had, a father's love he never knew, simpler days that feel a lifetime away. Downstairs, the silence swallows him whole. Joe cooks his breakfast, eggs, cereal, without a word. He scrolls through his phone aimlessly, just to feel something. Then he gets ready for work. Standing at the bathroom mirror, toothbrush in hand, he scrubs his teeth in silence, going through the motions for another day of pretending to care at a job he doesn't care about. Finally, his voice cracks through the quiet, a small whisper to himself. Why does life feel so pointless? Chapter 2. Days blur together. Joe wakes, drives his Jeep to work, types at a desk he barely notices, answers calls with a mechanical politeness. His eyes are dark, not from lack of sleep, but from carrying a weight no one else can see. He stares at a computer all day, eats alone, showers, brushes his teeth and sleeps, only to wake and do it all again. Every morning feels like an endless loop, a record stuck on the same scratch. Saturdays are the worst. The quiet emptiness presses harder, the loneliness sharper. This morning feels no different, until it does. Joe sits slouched at his computer when something outside catches his eye. He peers out the window, watching shadows move across the street. A figure in black walks from door to door, purposeful, silent. A strange sense of anticipation prickles the air. Then, sharp, immediate, insistent. Joe rises slowly and opens the door. A man, gun raised, demands his obedience. Hands up, kneel or I will shoot. Time fractures. The familiar monotony is gone. Joe doesn't flinch. He steps past the intruder, calm, deliberate. The man shouts again, desperately, "Hands up, or I will shoot." But Joe keeps moving. Reaching the kitchen, he opens the refrigerator, pulls out a shotgun, and without hesitation, fires. Joe kneels, trembling slightly, hand over his face. The weight of what just happened settles over him like a thundercloud. He whispers, barely audible, "Did I just do that?" The world feels both infinitely larger and unbearably small. The quiet after violence is deafening. Chapter 3. The day dragged toward noon, while Slow Joe's headlights struggled against the lingering forest. His hands gripped the steering wheel as if it were a lifeline, but the panic swirling inside him wasn't about the road. It was about everything. Why? Why me? He muttered under his breath, voice barely audible over the hum of the Jeep. All these years, just nothing. Work, eat, sleep, repeat. And now this. He glanced at the body in the trunk. The weight pressed into him like a second reality, one he had never asked for. What have I done? He slammed the accelerator, ignoring the speedometer. Gravel sprayed behind him. The Jeep wobbled as it skidded across the narrow forest trail. He felt hopeless. What do I do, man? The radio crackled. Useless static. Night deepened. His mind raced with fragments of his monotonous life. Emails, spreadsheets, coffee cups, the endless hum of fluorescent lights. He'd never imagined he'd be here, running, desperate, terrified. Then his phone rang. "You're crazy!" His mother's voice shattered the tense air. Rage and helplessness collided in his chest. "You're crazy!" Joe's jaw clenched. "Yeah, maybe I am," he whispered. "But you never saw me anyway." His vision blurred as tears mixed with the sweat on his face. The Jeep veered sharply. He fought to correct it. The world spun violently. Pain tore through him as the Jeep flipped. His neck snapped. Everything went black. And then impossibly, a soft light surrounded him, an angelic shield formed. His vision returned. He was alive. What? Joe gasped, testing his limbs, pinching himself. "This can't be. I died. This isn't real." The forest was quiet now, too quiet. His Jeep, crushed and smoking, looked like a relic from another life. Joe staggered out, legs trembling, breath uneven. Am I dreaming? Or cursed? Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time had lost meaning. Every step felt heavy, almost meaningless, until he saw the sun hanging low over a distant field. An old man sat on a fence, calm, patient. "I need help," Joe said, voice breaking. I just died. I don't know where I am or what's real." The old man looked at him steadily. "God gave you an opportunity. Go live." Joe's throat tightened. "Live, after all this, after the things I've done, could I even?" He sank to the ground, forehead pressed against dirt. "I don't know if I can, if I even deserve to." "You can," the old man said, voice soft. "It's not about deserving, it's about choosing." Joe closed his eyes. He thought of the monotonous days he had endured, the emptiness, the silence, the guilt pressing in, and somewhere in that reflection a faint ember stirred. Maybe I'm not trapped. Maybe I can do something different. Maybe I can live. He rose slowly, shoulders heavy but lighter than before. The wind tugged at his hair. The forest smelled alive, the distant hum of life like a heartbeat. Slow Joe exhaled, voice barely above a whisper. Maybe I'm not trapped after all. For the first time in years, he didn't feel the weight of life pressing down, just the quiet possibility of moving forward. Chapter 4. Slow Joe wonders, if death cannot touch him, what is the point of holding back? His answer comes in motion. At a vehicle dealership, he hands over $25,000 in cash and demands a green Vespa scooter, his eyes burning with determination and curiosity. He speeds into the mountains, leaning impossibly, flipping in the air, smashing against rocks, and breaking his neck. Pain surges, then fades. He respawns. The world feels unreal, a sandbox for his testing. "Why not drive a bus through the jungle," he mutters, and he does it, dodging trees, leaping ravines, getting bitten by snakes and spiders along the way. Each near death fuels his exhilaration. Roller coasters, skydives without parachutes, swimming with sharks. Slow Joe pushes farther, again and again. Every fatal fall, every crushing impact, ends with him standing, blinking in disbelief, then grinning. His stunts escalate beyond logic. A luxury lowrider skims the edge of a volcano. A snowmobile leaps across city rooftops. A monowheel carries him to the summit of the Burj Khalifa. Death is a teacher, and Joe learns with each repetition. The world watches, bewildered and fascinated, as viral videos capture his impossible feats. Slow Joe begins to understand. Purpose may not come from life or death, but from pushing limits, discovering his own strength, and defying the impossible. His reckless error is not chaos. It is an experiment, a search for meaning in a life where nothing can stop him. Soon, a stuntman company arrives, seeking to harness his fame, unaware that Joe is no longer just a man, but a force rewriting the rules of life itself. Chapter 5. Two men in sharp black suits, flanked by two rugged stuntmen, knocked on Joe's door. Joe, half asleep, muttered under his breath, "They never even came for the scooter." Before he could protest, they escorted him into a sleek car and drove him to a towering glass building, the headquarters of a world-famous stunt company. Inside, Joe found himself surrounded by hardened stuntmen, scarred and muscular, their eyes narrowing as they sized him up. One scoffed, "Who let this guy in? He looks like an accountant, not a daredevil." Another muttered, "This is dumb. He won't last a day." But their manager, a sharp-eyed man in a tailored suit, silenced them with a wave. He shook Joe's hand firmly and leaned in. "Joe, your stunts, your ability to survive, it's unlike anything we've ever seen. The world has never witnessed something like you. We can turn this into something bigger. Fame, money, recognition. You could do things no one else can, but you'll have to work with us, follow our plans. Think of this as your chance to finally have purpose." Joe hesitated, then slowly nodded. A stuntman's suit was placed in his hands. As he slipped into it, he whispered to himself, voice trembling, "Is this what I was meant to be?" That night, Joe's debut began. Under blinding lights and roaring crowds, he rode a motocross bike, flipping through the air with reckless abandon. Then drove through rings of fire, only to crash, burn, and collapse in the arena. Gasps echoed. The audience screamed in horror, until a sudden angelic shield flashed, and Joe rose from the flames, alive. The announcers' voices cracked in disbelief as they boomed through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, what did we just witness? He's alive! He got back up!" The world erupted. Conspiracy theorists whispered about secret government technology. Project Lazarus, he's their weapon. The non-religious demanded scientific testing, while the devout fell to their knees, calling Joe proof of divinity itself. The company pushed him harder. They saw more than stunts. They saw possibility. Soon Joe found himself strapped into a spacecraft, the mission, Jupiter. Cameras watched as the rocket launched into the heavens. Then, an explosion tore through the vessel. The world held its breath. The headlines wrote his obituary, "Slow Joe, dead at last." But out of the smoke, out of the impossible, he returned. Respawned, breathing, standing, alive. And in that moment the world knew Slow Joe was no longer just a man, he was a phenomenon. The world crowned Joe Newton a legend. Cameras flashed as Guinness World Records declared him the first and only immortal human. Crowds cheered, news anchors shouted his name, and entire arenas roared at his survival. Slow Joe, standing at the centre of it all. His face remained hollow, empty, as though all the applause belonged to someone else. Inside, he wondered why he felt nothing at all. But in the shadows of the crowd, another man watched, Slow Morbius. His jaw tightened, his eyes filled with something between disbelief and rage. Morbius had once been the name. In the 1990s, he ruled television screens, performing stunts that no one dared dream of, leaping from helicopters onto moving trains, crashing cars through burning barricades, driving motorcycles off skyscrapers, and walking away with only scars. He was fearless, adored, and unstoppable. Fame brought him money, but what he valued most was his family. He cherished his wife. He lived for his son. For a time, life felt full, but time is cruel. His body aged, his son grew distant, his wife drifted away. The spotlight dimmed, the cheers faded, and now the world had replaced him with another, Joe Newton, a man who did not even want the fame, a man who didn't earn it through broken bones, but through an unexplainable gift, immortality. As Joe respawned again and again, the headlines erased Morbius. The man who once defined an era became nothing more than a forgotten relic. His wife left, his son moved away, and the silence of his home grew unbearable. Loneliness took root. Loneliness turned to bitterness, and bitterness twisted into something darker. Watching Joe stand there, lifelessly adored by millions, Morbius felt the spark of hatred ignite. He couldn't stand it, not anymore. Not watching everything he built crumble because of this hollow man who refused to die. Confused and consumed by revenge, Morbius began making calls, reaching out to the kind of people Joe could never imagine facing, criminals, mercenaries, those hungry for chaos. And in that moment, Slow Morbius's comeback began. Not in stunts, not in glory, but in vengeance. Chapter 6. Slow Joe arrived home, his body intact but his mind broken. He sat in silence, trying to process the impossible. He whispered to himself, "Why am I still here? Why me? Is God real?" The question lingered in the empty air, but thinking only hurt more, so Joe numbed himself the way he always did, slumping into his couch, staring blankly at the TV, trying to drown out the storm inside. Then it happened. A sudden crack of glass shattered the stillness. The TV screen flickered as a bullet tore through his window. Joe froze, heart pounding, eyes scanning. Shadows slipped into his home, robbers armed and ruthless. They didn't hesitate, guns raised, triggers pulled. Joe dropped, body collapsing lifeless. But seconds later, he respawns. The robbers gasped in disbelief. Desperation seized them. Again, they pulled the triggers, emptying bullets into him. Joe fell, and again he rose. His existence defied reason, and terror spread across their faces. This time, Joe didn't just stand. He snapped. Fury boiled inside him. He grabbed a gas can from the corner, his lighter clenched tight in the other hand. His voice, raw and furious, roared, "Shoot, or I light it all up!" The flick of the lighter's flame danced in his eyes. The robbers, terrified beyond words, bolted from the house. Joe stood alone, shaking but unbroken. He dropped the flame into the gas. Fire erupted, devouring his home, the one place that once meant safety. Now it was gone, reduced to ashes. Joe didn't move. He simply watched the blaze, smoke curling into the night sky. It was destruction, but also a strange reflection of himself. He couldn't die, but everything around him could. Slow Morbius realized something chilling. Slow Joe wasn't just lucky, he was unstoppable. The robbers who had fled in terror now whispered his name like a curse. But Morbius wasn't finished. He had money, influence, and patience, and he knew the quickest way to hurt Joe was to strike at the one place he still cared for, his family. It didn't take long. On a quiet Saturday morning, they found her, Joe's mother, in a small sunlit apartment. Coffee sat steaming on the table. A cozy coat draped over a chair. She moved about her morning unaware of the shadow looming outside. Then came the knock. A dark figure, pistol raised, waited. One gunshot shattered the stillness. The mother's fate remained unseen, but the sound alone carried finality. Hours later, at a 7-Eleven, Joe's phone rang. The world seemed to stop. His mother, gone. Heart-pounding, he raced through the streets, adrenaline and grief fueling him. Arriving at the apartment, he saw paramedics handling the scene. Everything felt unreal. Among the debris, his eyes fell on an old photograph, him and his mother at his high school graduation. The frame was cracked, glass webbed like broken time. She was smiling, so proud, so alive. Joe picked it up, thumb tracing the dust over her face. He hadn't seen her in years, not since the day he left, saying he'd call. He never did. The weight of that memory hit harder than any bullet. Tears blurred his vision as the room seemed to fade, colors washing away until only the photograph remained, bright, warm, untouched by the world's rot. How can this be?" he whispered, voice breaking under the collapse of everything unsaid. Grief wrapped around him like a vice, pressing until it hurt to breathe. Pain, regret, anger, all twisted together, and somewhere beneath it something began to move. A spark, a cold, determined fire. He stepped outside, watching the ambulance disappear into the distance. Slow Joe didn't cry anymore. He didn't scream. He acted. Pulling out his phone, he made a call. Then he headed to a nearby weapons shop, filling his arms with shotguns, grenades, and every tool of vengeance he could carry. His grief had a purpose now. Slow Joe was ready. The war had only just begun. Chapter 7. Joe had called his old friend, Brock. The guy who peaked too soon in high school. The one who trash-talked everyone without missing a beat. Who laughed until his sides hurt while he and Joe spent late nights glued to the console back in middle and high school. Back then, Brock was the life of the room. Joe's best friend. The one who made losing feel like winning. Because the commentary was always gold. But 15 years later, he was still the same in all the wrong ways. Cocky. Quick with a joke. Still glued to the controller like it was an extension of his hand. On the surface, life hadn't slowed him down. Still gaming hard, still talking even harder. But underneath, the endless possibilities of youth had drained away. What was left was regret and a dull numbness. Going back to Joe, he began climbing the stairs of a modern apartment building, stopping at the 8th floor. He knocked on the door. For a moment, there was only silence, then the faint sound of shuffling inside. A beat later, the door swung open. Brock froze. His eyes went wide. "Joe, are you real?" His voice cracked, almost as if he didn't trust what he was seeing. Joe gave a faint nod. "It's been a long time," he said softly. Then his tone shifted, firm, deliberate. "But I need you to join me." From under his coat, he pulled a shotgun and a belt of ammo, not as a threat, but as proof that whatever he was stepping into, it was real. Deadly real. Brock blinked. A nervous laugh slipped out as he rubbed the back of his neck. "Man, you serious?" "Bruh, we were just gaming on the couch at 3 a.m, and now you talk in war like we're in some movie or something?" Joe didn't flinch. His eyes were steady, unshaken. Brock slouched back into his chair, crossing his arms with that trademark smirk. "Man, I ain't built for this. Ain't got no family, no kids, no life. Just me and the sticks." Joe stepped closer, voice low but firm. "If you join me, I'll get you a team and the rocket launcher you always wanted." That made Brock pause. For the first time, the smirk faded. He stared at Joe, disbelief mixing with something else. A spark. An old thrill he hadn't felt since the glory days, back when every night felt like an adventure and every game felt like it mattered. And slowly, deep inside, something stirred, like a forgotten cheat code had just been entered. Something inside him woke up. This is Barley. He wasn't always the fire-wielding robot bartender he is now. Once upon a time, he was nothing more than a chrome drink dispenser in a smoke-filled bar back in the 70s. A clunky machine that poured beers, fizzed sodas, and never spoke a word. But decades of upgrades changed him. Piece by piece, line of code by line of code, Barley became something more than a machine. A talking AI. A bartender with a memory like a library, a wit sharpened from years of listening to drunks spill their stories. He learned to read faces, mimic empathy, though he never quite felt it. And after years of breaking up fights the old-fashioned way, he took matters into his own hands, building his own line of Molotovs for crowd control. Sarcasm, fire, and a steady hand. That was Barley. That day, Slow Joe walked into Barley's bar restaurant. The neon signs buzzed outside, but inside it was quiet, dimly lit, a place caught between the past and present. Joe felt heavier than ever. His mother was gone. Brock had turned him down. He stepped inside, not knowing what he was looking for. Maybe comfort, maybe just a glass of something cold. He sat at the counter. Behind it, Barley's metallic head swiveled, eyes flickering with a soft glow. His voice came out smooth, polite, almost cheerful. "Good afternoon, sir. What would you like?" Joe barely looked up. "Water," he muttered. Barley tilted his head. A bold choice. The machine poured the glass with mechanical precision, sliding it across the counter. Joe took a sip, his voice low, skeptical. "AI sure is advanced nowadays." "Certainly," Barley replied flatly. "Technological progress is blooming." The silence lingered. Joe stared into the water, searching for answers at the bottom of the glass. Finally, he let the words slip. "I wish I had a team to bring justice." Barley's eye blinked. Then his tone shifted, clipped and robotic. Justice mode. Automatic. Without another word, Barley marched stiffly from the counter, disappeared behind the register, and returned with a lit Molotov cocktail in his mechanical grip. He placed it on the bar like it was a regular drink order. Joe's eyes widened. "Where did you even get that? I've been trying to find those for months." Barley leaned in, voice deadpan. "Trade secret. Follow me." He led Joe past the bar, through a narrow hallway and into a heavy steel door. With a mechanical hiss, it slid open, revealing a hidden basement. Joe froze at the sight. Shelves upon shelves, crates stacked high, an arsenal of Molotov cocktails stretching into the shadows like a forbidden stockpile. Amazed, Joe whispered, "You're serious? Give me your number now." Barley didn't flinch. He simply handed Joe a card. "My number," he said. Joe squinted. "This is a restaurant phone line." Barley's eyes flickered brighter. Exactly, reservations required. For the first time that day, Joe almost laughed. Almost. The next day afternoon, Slow Joe walked into a small Mexican restaurant, the aroma of sizzling tortillas and rich salsa greeting him. Behind the counter, a group of mariachis played lively music, the sound of guitars, trumpets and violins filling the air. One musician stood out, Poco, a mariachi who had dreamed of being a musician since he was a kid. Always cheerful and positive, he had a kind soul and a heart full of hope, even though people often doubted him. Today, however, that hope was being tested. As the band played, Poco stumbled over a note. The other mariachis snapped at him, shouting and mocking. His manager barked, "Eres un maldito payaso!" One of them grabbed Poco's guitar in anger and smashed it on the floor. Poco's chest tightened and tears welled in his eyes. Unable to bear it, he bolted outside, seeking a quiet place to cry. Joe followed, stepping onto the sunlit sidewalk where Poco huddled against the wall, his grief spilling over. "I know what it's like to be broken," Joe said softly. Poco looked up through tears. "No one understands me," he whispered. Joe crouched beside him, voice steady, calm yet empathetic. "I understand you. I left my family behind. I've felt the same loneliness and loss, but you don't have to face it alone." Poco blinked, confused. What do you mean?" Joe extended a hand, smiling faintly. "I want you to join me, and I'll give you something special, a healing guitar. Not just for you, but for those around you. It will help you heal others, one song at a time." Poco's hands shook as he took it in. "You mean I won't be fighting alone?" Joe nodded. "Exactly. You'll never be alone." For the first time in a long while, Poco smiled through his tears. Joe pulled him into a brief, reassuring hug, and in that moment, a new bond was forged, a promise of purpose, of music, and of a fight bigger than themselves. Later, Joe headed to his mechanic to get his Jeep repaired. He waited patiently, glancing around the garage, letting the hum of machinery fill the air. But when he stepped outside into the narrow alley, two mysterious men appeared, leaning casually against the wall. Their voices carried a mocking edge. "Joe Newton, your mother is dead," one sneered. Joe froze, then his anger flared. "Who are y'all? Who's the one who did it?" His voice echoed off the alley walls. The men shifted uncomfortably, their confident smirks faltering. One of them finally spoke, almost embarrassed, as if the name itself was too ridiculous. "Slow. Morbius." Joe narrowed his eyes. Who the hell is that? The answer would come later. For now, the mechanic called him back and Joe got to work on his Jeep. But his mind was elsewhere. Later that day, Joe drove deep into a mist-shrouded forest. Through the fog, a colossal structure emerged, vast, industrial, and impossibly hidden among the trees. It stretched wider than any building he had ever seen, a fortress of secrets, long meant to stay invisible, until now. He drove near and he saw it, a pink guitar, glowing faintly, labelled for healing. Without hesitation, Joe smashed the glass and grabbed it. Alarms blared. Scientists scrambled, shouting in disbelief, but Joe was already gone. He drove away swiftly, cutting through the darkened forest toward a secret market. There, he exchanged cash for a rocket launcher, for Brock in the coming war. Back in his vehicle, driving home, he clenched the steering wheel, planning his next move. Slow Joe was ready. Chapter 8. Back home, Joe jolted awake at 2:44 a.m., drenched in sweat. His chest heaved as the remnants of a nightmare clung to him, his mother's death replaying in flashes he couldn't escape. The silence of the house pressed down on him, heavy, suffocating. He sat up, uneasy, his gut whispering that something was wrong, that someone was watching. The bedroom door shattered inward with a violent crack. Splinters flew across the room. Through the wreckage stood a pale figure, unnervingly still, sharp eyes glinting in the moonlight. He wore a fancy vest that somehow made him look both elegant and dangerous. In his hands gleamed something far worse, an iron axe, raised high, swung with terrifying intent. Joe froze, instinct screaming at him. He had no idea who this was. Not a neighbor, not a burglar he recognized. Nothing. The figure felt like a ghost, but alive, real, and lethal. And somehow, just somehow, Joe thought of him as John. A name that slipped from his lips before his mind could protest, a placeholder for the nightmare standing before him, because he couldn't wrap his head around anything else. Joe staggered to his feet, panic and instinct colliding. He lunged toward the nearest drawer, yanking it open with trembling hands. Inside, his dagger. The blade hissed against the wood as he snatched it up just in time. Steel met steel with a violent clang. The dagger quaked under the force of the axe, Joe's hands rattling from the impact. His breath caught in his throat. The pale man's strength was inhuman. And then, just as suddenly as he had appeared, he was gone. The pressure lifted. The room fell silent. No footsteps, no breath, nothing. Only the ruined door and the echo of steel still ringing in Joe's ears. Joe stood frozen, dagger still clutched tight, chest rising and falling in uneven gasps. Sleep was no longer possible. He sat awake until dawn, haunted by the thought that now gnawed at him. Maybe his respawn wasn't a gift at all. Maybe it was a curse. The next morning, Joe tried to shake the shadows from his mind. He gathered his team, picking up Barley and Poco, the three of them together for the first time outside Poco's home. Poco hopped into the back seat, cradling his brand-new guitar, still proud of it. But then his gaze landed on Barley, metallic face glowing faintly, voice box humming. Poco blinked, laughed nervously, and blurted, "Hey, caramba, the bartender's a robot." Barley gave a polite wave, his tone perfectly flat. "Name's Barley. I serve drinks. What'll it be, sir?" Poco muttered under his breath, eyes wide. "Dios mio, this team is loco." Joe, for once, almost smiled. The team was strange, unlikely, but it was his. Slow Joe's red Jeep screeched to a halt in front of a wrecked, trash-strewn house. Barley and Poco glanced out the windows as Joe cut the engine. Rusted cars sagged against the siding, and crushed soda cans glittered like broken glass across the lawn. Joe stepped out, nostalgia tugging at his chest. He whispered under his breath, "Man, Arnold!" He climbed the porch, knocked on the battered door. No answer. Inside, a TV blared with cartoon voices, laugh tracks spilling through the cracks. Joe knocks. Nothing. Joe knocks again, still no response. The third knock echoed through the house like a warning. By the fourth knock, his patience thinned. "Arnold, open the door!" The door flew open with a bang. Out stumbled Arnold, broken shoes, sticky with soda stains, hair a wild mess. He is a man-child through and through, the kind who never grew up. With an IQ of 22, he was clueless, scatterbrained, dumb as they came. But fast. Lightning fast. So fast people once compared him to a train. His darting eyes flickered with childlike confusion as he squinted at Joe, head tilting, voice high and uncertain. "Joe? Joe who? Oh, are you Joe Banana?" He burst into wheezy laughter at his own joke. Joe sighed, shoulders slumping. "It's me, Joe, from school." Arnold scratched his head, face twisting with sudden realization. "Oh, Joe Mama," and he doubled over, cackling like it was the funniest joke in the universe. From the Jeep, Poco leaned toward Barley and whispered, "Is he serious?" Barley, face unreadable, answered flatly, "IQ of 22. Confirmed." Before Joe could say another word, Arnold blurred into motion. 1 second he was standing in the doorway, the next he was circling the group at dizzying speed, feet pounding the dirt. Dust swirled in the air as he shouted, "Zoom, zoom, zoom!" He skidded to a stop inches from Poco's guitar, eyes sparkling with fascination. "Whoa! You play music? Can you play the SpongeBob theme?" Poco clutched his guitar protectively, muttering, "Madre Santa, this fool is rapido." Joe pinched the bridge of his nose. "Same Arnold, never changed." Poco tilted his head. "Wait, is he a grown man?" Joe's expression softened. "Yeah, he is. Back in school he had this condition. His parents left him at birth like he was nothing. He was raised by his grandparents, mocked by everyone. But he ran. Running was the only thing that made him feel free." For a moment, Arnold stopped fidgeting. His eyes darted between them, almost shy, as though he understood more than his words ever showed. Joe placed a hand on his shoulder. "Come on, Arnold. We could use you." Arnold beamed, his soda-stained shirt crinkling as he bounced on his heels. "Zoom squad, zoom squad." And just like that, the team was 4 strong. Joe's red Jeep weaved through the highway, engine roaring like a beast. Arnold sat half standing in the back, arms spread wide like wings, yelling, "Woo! I'm faster than this Jeep!" Poco yanked him back by the shirt. "Calmate, niño, you'll get yourself killed." He hugged his guitar tightly, shaking his head. "Why is he even on the team, Joe?" Joe didn't take his eyes off the road. His voice was low, steady. "Because I trust him. That's enough." Barley, perched in the passenger seat, swiveled his metallic head toward Joe. "Trust is statistically unreliable. Define friend." Arnold popped up again, leaning over Poco's shoulder, eyes wide with curiosity. "Yeah, Joe, who's this mystery man? Is he a pirate? Or, a space alien?" Joe exhaled through his nose, gripping the wheel tighter. "He's just a friend. Someone I knew a long time ago." Poco raised a brow. "A friend, after all this? You think friend is enough?" For a moment, the Jeep fell silent, except for Arnold's occasional zoom noises under his breath. Joe spoke again, softer this time. "Sometimes a friend is all you've got." Arnold blinked, then grinned, shouting, "I like friends!" breaking the tension instantly. Barley sighed. "Confirmed. Team morale lowered by 22%. Joe almost smiled. Almost. By mid-afternoon, they pulled up to Brock's apartment. Joe carried the rocket launcher he'd purchased for him. They knocked, and Brock's eyes widened as he peeked out, expecting a squad of hardened mercenaries. Instead, he found the world's most absurd team assembled before him. First out was Barley, the robot bartender, carrying a case of Molotovs. His metal arms clinked as he waved stiffly. "Good afternoon, sir." Brock blinked. "A bartender?" Then Poco jumped out, strumming his new guitar. "Orale, ready to heal the world with music." Brock frowned. "A mariachi?" Finally, Arnold tumbled out, barefoot and covered in crumbs, holding a toy car. "Hi, I'm Arnold! Look, vroom!" He ran in loops. Brock stared at Joe. Then disbelief overtook him, and he burst out laughing. "Bruh, you dead-ass brought me a bartender, a mariachi, and a man-child to go to war. Joe, this ain't a squad. It's a circus." Slow Joe's voice was flat. "That's all I got." Joe handed Brock the rocket launcher. "Go change before the world ends." In his room, Brock stared at the weapon, contemplating. "Is this real, bro?" He gripped it like a mission briefing, slipping into his blue vest, modern sneakers and sunglasses. Determined, he emerged and joined the team. Slow Joe stood at the center of the sunlit living room. The others gathered around. Barley perched stiffly in a chair, Poco tuning his guitar, Arnold spinning in place on the rug, and Brock sprawled on the couch, controller in hand, smirking as always. Joe cleared his throat as the TV flicked on, revealing Slow Morbius in his golden era, strutting beside a mansion, soaking in his own glory. "Listen up. This is Slow Morbius. He's the bad guy. We're going to his mansion." Arnold shot his hand up. "Mansion? Does he have a swimming pool?" Joe sighed. "Not important. What matters are the defenses," Arnold gasped, pointing wildly. "Lasers? Pew, 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 pew." He rolled on the floor, making the sounds himself. Brock burst out laughing. "Bro, is this dude for real? You picked this clown?" Arnold sat up proudly. "I'm fast. Faster than a car. Faster than you." Brock smirked. "Yeah, bet I could smoke you in Fortnite any day." Arnold's jaw dropped. "Fortnite?" He gasped. "I don't even stay up past 8. Poco groaned, muttering softly in Spanish. "Madre mia, este niño otra vez." Joe pushed on, voice firm. Guards will be waiting, armed guards. Arnold flexed his twig-like arms. I got arms too. Barley's metallic head swiveled, voice flat. IQ of 22, irreversible. Brock laughed harder. Joe, man, your squad's doomed. You got Drunk Bot, Crybaby Mariachi, Discount Flash, and me. We're like the bargain bin Avengers. Joe clenched his fists, ignoring the chaos. Doesn't matter, we're going in, together. Poco nodded, small smile on his face. Bueno, we just have to stick together, see? Chaos or not, we can make this work. Arnold jumped to his feet, pumping both fists. Road trip! Brock snorted, more like suicide trip. Barley calmly adjusted a bottle. Correction, statistically, 4% chance of survival, optimistic. Joe glared at them all. We're leaving. Now. Arnold raised his hand, completely serious. Now. Like, before the sun explodes or after? Joe face-palmed. Chapter 9. The jeep rumbled to a stop before the iron gates. Beyond them, the mansion rose wide and glittering, windows catching the daylight like 1,000 watchful eyes. Joe squinted, jaw tight. That's it. Morbius's nest. Barley's lenses whirred, clicking as they swept the grounds. 17 cameras, 33 guards, automated turrets. Probability of unnoticed entry, 0. Brock let out a low whistle. Bro, this ain't a house, it's a fortress. Man's living like Scarface with Wi-Fi. From the back seat came a soft chord. Poco sat with his guitar in his lap, shaking his head. Madre mia, even the roses look like they've got bodyguards. Arnold popped up over the seat, eyes huge. Yo, does that pool have a slide? I call first. Joe pinched the bridge of his nose. Arnold, focus. We're not here for a swim. Arnold's shoulders sagged. He folded his arms with a pout. Then why even come? Mansions are for swimming pools and birthday cakes. Barley's mechanical voice cut in, flat as steel. Correction, mansions are for getting shot if we move forward. Brock barked a laugh. Joe, man, you brought a mariachi, a malfunctioning Roomba, and the discount flash to storm a fortress? We're screwed before we start. But Joe didn't flinch. His eyes stayed locked on the mansion. His voice was steady, quiet but firm. We'll find another way, a quiet way. I'm not throwing everyone into a straight fight. Poco gave a small nod, strumming a hopeful note. See? Patience. Music always sounds better when you wait for the right moment. Arnold leaned forward, hopeful. So no swimming pool? Joe groaned. No pool. Brock smirked, shaking his head. Man, we're doomed. Joe's voice went cold, so calm it cut like a blade. The plan shifted. Poco, take Arnold by the hand. Barley, sweep for enemies. Brock, you fire. From here, at that wing. One shot. Keep distance. Brock's grin died on the spot. He looked down at the rocket launcher in his hands as if it had grown teeth. Wait, hold up. You want me to shoot a rocket launcher at a mansion? Are you serious, Joe? This ain't a video game, man. Joe didn't blink. His answer came like stone. Yes. Brock's finger trembled on the trigger. He swallowed, aimed, then fired. The rocket screamed, a beast unchained. Impact. Glass turned to rain. The facade erupted into orange and black. Hedges curled into ash. The air reeked of gasoline and panic. Highly inadvisable, Barley muttered, calm as a machine watching a glitch. Poco clapped a hand over his mouth. Madre mia, demasiado fuego. His voice cracked. Brock stared at the fireball devouring the mansion, the heat painting his face. His voice shrank to a whisper. Oh no, what have I done? Arnold froze beside him, clutching his toy car like a shield against the flames. Then, the radio crackled. Sirens. Growing closer. They didn't wait. They fled. By the time the jeep turned the last corner, smoke was clawing at the sky. Flames licked hungrily at the mansion's roof. Alarms shrieked. Floodlights swept across the compound like furious eyes. And on the estate grounds, Slow Morbius stood, relaxed, unbothered, enjoying what was supposed to be his perfect afternoon. He lined up a golf shot on the trimmed green, posture sharp, jaw lifted with smug confidence. A photographer hovered nearby, snapping promo pictures as Morbius posed with the club, mansion shining behind him like a trophy. For a moment, everything was calm, easy, golden. Then, a flicker of orange glowed behind him, smoke curled upward. The photographer froze mid-click. Sir, behind you. Slow Morbius turned, expecting maybe a gardener, a reflection, anything normal. Instead, his palace was burning. Flames crawled up the windows in hungry waves, black smoke rising into the sky like a signal of war. For a second, he just stared, caught between disbelief and insult. His perfect day, his perfect mansion, ruined in an instant. Then the rage hit, hard. It cracked across his face, twisting everything civilized into something sharp and feral. Find the one responsible, now, he roared. Cameras snapped awake. Sensors poured data across screens. Security systems rewired themselves into a hunting net. Drones took to the air. Guards scrambled like soldiers in a hive. Within an hour, the answer came back, undeniable. One name. Slow Morbius spat it like poison. That man needs to die, and his army moved. Fast, coordinated, hunting. The red jeep thundered down the highway, tires squealing against the asphalt, dust kicking up in angry clouds. Joe's eyes narrowed as the horizon shifted. Ahead, the road seemed different. A wall of cars had stopped abruptly, forming a blockade. Rusted trucks, black SUVs, and armored vans, too many vehicles to drive through. "Hold up," Joe muttered, foot on the brake. The jeep skidded to a halt. The air hung heavy, the hum of engines like a warning drum. From the surrounding vehicles, figures began emerging. Masked robbers and arsonists, guns glinting under the sun. Arnold popped out of the back, wide-eyed, adrenaline surging. "Yo! This is a game!" He darted left and right, laughter tumbling from his lips, as if bullets were nothing more than cartoon obstacles. Joe's voice cut through the chaos, calm but deadly. "Everyone out, now." One by one, they stepped onto the asphalt. Barley's metal frame gleamed under the sun. Molotovs clutched with unflinching precision. Arnold zipped around, a blur of motion, eyes gleaming with manic focus. Joe gripped his shotgun like an extension of his own arm, scanning, calculating. Brock froze. Rocket launcher in hand, his bravado evaporated in an instant. Every muscle tensed, his face drained of color, knuckles white as he hugged the weapon to his chest. "Oh no, 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 we're dead, man." Beside him, Poco ducked into the back seat of the red jeep, hugging his guitar like a life raft. His eyes flicked nervously from one armed figure to the next, fear rooting him to the spot. "Madre mia, esto es demasiado." His voice cracked, trembling, unsteady. Bullets ricocheted off metal and asphalt. The robbers moved in coordinated precision, but Joe was faster, harder, sharper. He lunged, pulled Arnold from a direct line of fire, and retaliated with calculated fury. Barley flung Molotovs, each one erupting in fireballs that forced attackers back, staggering their advance. Arnold zipped through gaps, knocking over a few as he went, before colliding into a car and needing rescue from Joe's grasp. Brock ducked into the back seat of the jeep alongside Poco, clutching his rocket launcher as if it could shield him. His eyes widened at the flames and chaos, every muscle frozen in fear. Their courage flickered like a candle in the wind, but the rest of the team's chaos and firepower created the path they needed. Finally, Joe shouted, "Move! Get in!" Arnold and Barley dove back into the jeep. Joe leapt in, and with a roar of engines, they pushed forward, weaving between flaming debris and stunned attackers. Brock pressed himself against the seat, rocket launcher trembling, while Poco's fingers clutched his guitar as if it could ward off the storm around them. By the time they reached a clear stretch, the sirens from approaching police filled the air. Smoke clawed at the sky behind them. Brock whispered hoarsely, We survived?" Poco exhaled shakily. "Madre mia, I thought we were done for." Joe's eyes were sharp, resolute. "This isn't over. We need defenses. We move fast. We move smart. No hesitation." Arnold, bouncing in his seat, screamed joyfully, "Vroom, vroom, let's go!" Barley's metallic head swiveled, mechanical voice flat. Affirmative, defensive protocols engaged. And the jeep roared on, carrying the survivors through the chaos, leaving a battlefield of smoke, fire, and disbelief in their wake. Chapter 10. The team burst into Walmart like a hurricane. Shelves rattled, carts toppled, and alarms screamed silently above them. Slow Joe barked orders with calm precision. "Grab ice! 3 fridges, gas cans, tires, hammers, metal fences." His voice cut through the chaos. Barley's sensors whirred, mechanical eyes scanning every aisle. Affirmative, locating ice, fridges, and miscellaneous defensive supplies. Brock fumbled with a hammer, wide-eyed. Joe, why 3 fridges?" Poco clutched his guitar, knuckles white. "Madre mia, this is madness." Arnold bounded over a stack of tires, bouncing like a spring. "Vroom, vroom! I got it! More! More!" Ordinary shoppers scattered, staring, while a few shady figures ducked behind displays. Brock and Poco helped Joe haul the first fridge, sweat dripping down their faces. Sirens wailed in the distance. Brock's eyes went wide. "You have to be kidding me." Barley's arm shot up, hurling Molotovs with precision. Flames erupted, bouncing along aisles. Joe fired his shotgun at the nearest police tires, sparks scattering across the concrete. The team jumped into the red Jeep, fridges and supplies crammed in every corner. Outside, the streets had become a symphony of chaos, siren wails, shouting officers, and a police helicopter cutting through the noon sky. Brock's hands trembled on the rocket launcher. We're going to prison, 100%. Arnold whooped from the back seat, bouncing atop a pile of tires. Vroom vroom! Let's go! Back at Slow Joe's house, the real madness began. Furniture, appliances, and stolen Walmart supplies were strewn across the lawn. Arnold was already breaking plates like toys. Arnold, stop! Joe roared. Poco raised his hands, trying to calm everyone. Relájense, amigos. We have time. Stay positive. Joe hammered metal fences onto windows and doors with desperation, sweat streaking his face. Brock barricaded the front, piling tables, chairs, and blankets against the door. Arnold danced around, tossing toilet paper everywhere, laughing like a child. Barley stood like a sentinel, calculating angles, coverage, and probability of survival. Then police troops had surrounded them, guns aimed, shouting commands. Hope waned, but Barley hurled another Molotov, flames lapping at tires and asphalt, giving the team precious seconds. Joe and Brock launched a fridge filled with ice and volatile chemicals into the advancing officers, the street instantly frosting over in a deadly sheet of frozen chaos. Arnold followed orders, tossing gas cans into the path. Joe's shotgun flared, igniting a massive explosion, sending fire and oil sprawling across the frozen street. The air was thick with smoke, ice, and heat, a battlefield of elements and pure madness. The streets roared with fire, glass, and gunfire. Slow Joe's house, if it could even be called a house anymore, had become a fortress of chaos. Molotov flames licked the street. Freezers of ice leaked frozen mist across the lawn. Gas cans hissed like ticking bombs. Joe's team moved in desperate rhythm, each man clinging to survival. Officers slipped on ice, choked in smoke, fell back behind their cruisers. For a moment, it looked like the impossible was working, until the world shifted. From the smoke stepped Slow Morbius, flanked by all his men, hardened criminals he had recruited, arriving in a convoy of roaring cars and black vans. Morbius raised his shotgun, not at Joe, but at the police, eyes blazing with calculated fury. Gunfire thundered as officers fell back, blindsided. Then Morbius pivoted, eyes blazing, and aimed at Joe's home. "Hopeless," he growled. "I'll burn you all." He barked orders to his men, and instantly gunfire erupted, bullets ripping through walls and shattering windows. Shattered glass rained over the team. Barley ducked behind a fridge, his monotone cutting through the chaos. Situation escalating, threat level, lethal. Recommend evasive maneuvers. Brock scrambled, pale, sweating. "Oh no, they're shooting everything! Joe, what do we do?" Poco trembled in the corner, hugging his guitar like a shield. Arnold spun in panicked circles, baseline, knocking over fences and chairs. Joe, calm even in the storm, racked his shotgun. "Get to cover. We fight back." Gunfire snapped. Brock cried out as a bullet tore into him, collapsing. Poco's hands shook, strings vibrating as he strummed a desperate chord. Light burst from his guitar, healing energy washing over Brock's wound. Brock blinked, stunned. For the first time, he looked at Poco not as a coward, but as a savior. Barley hurled Molotovs, thinning the attackers, igniting vans and barricades. Arnold, erratic but fearless, drew the arsonist's fire, while Poco's healing light strengthened the team from behind, and Joe struck down the assassins one by one. Brock, teeth clenched, raised his rocket launcher, blasting a line of robbers. His face twisted, half victory, half disgust at the killing. Finally, with their last two fridges, Joe and Brock unleashed a frozen wall, frost crawling up cars and pavement. Criminals slipped and scattered. The tide was turning, until shadows shifted above. 22 thieves dropped from the roof. Glass shattered as they swarmed through upstairs windows. Joe spun, shotgun raised. "Stop right there!" One thief froze. The others didn't. Joe's blast echoed, cutting one down instantly. Arnold dashed in, creating chaos, grabbing at thieves, tripping them, throwing plates like frisbees. However, one thief grabbed him by the collar and lifted him up. Arnold, caught off guard and annoyed, muttered, "Hey, put me down." The thief hesitated, then tossed him aside in fear and bolted. Some thieves fled with stolen ammo and food. Others fell to the team's desperate counterattack. Then came the moment. The walls quaked. The door splintered. Fire rolled across the floor as Slow Morbius stepped through the smoke. His stuntman suit hung in tatters, armor dented and scorched, shotgun locked in his grip, bombs strapped across his chest like a final oath. He looked less like a man now, more like something dragged out of rage and obsession. His eyes never left Joe. He fired point blank. The blast tore through Joe's chest. The sound was wet. Final. Blood sprayed the wall behind him as the force threw his body backward. Joe hit the floor hard. Still. No breath. No movement. His eyes stared past the ceiling, unfocused. The room froze around him. Brock screamed. Poco's guitar slipped from his hands, clattering against the floor. Arnold's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Smoke drifted. Fire crackled. Joe didn't move. For a second, that felt too long. Then, light. A sudden flash ripped through the room. An angelic shield flared around Joe, glowing with power. He stood again, shotgun in hand, whole and unbroken. The room went silent. Even Morbius froze. No way. Joe's eyes burned with fury. One pull of the trigger and Morbius was blown backward, collapsing in a heap. Finally, slow Morbius was finished. Brock dropped to his knees, shaking. "Joe, you're alive, and he's gone." Poco clutched his guitar, whispering through disbelief. "Madre mia, eso fue increíble." Arnold's eyes bulged, pointing at Joe like he'd seen a ghost. He just did a magic trick! Joe's a wizard!" He spun in circles, arms flailing, then froze mid-run, gasping. "Wait, if Joe died and now Joe's back, does that mean I'm dead too?" He slapped himself hard across the face, stumbled and shouted, "Nope! Still here! Ow, ow!" He bolted straight into Barley's arms like a terrified child. "Metal guy, hold me! He's glowing like an angel Pikachu." Barley's voice cut through the chaos, flat and cold as ever, analyzing Slow Joe, status resurrected. Cause of respawn, unknown. Probability of divine origin, 0%. Probability of cheat codes, 87%. Relief surged through the team. They had won. Then, the sirens rose again. Red and blue lights flooded the ruins. FBI surrounded the house, rifles raised, spotlights blinding. "Hands up, now!" Exhausted. Out of ammo, out of options. One by one they knelt. Barley, out of Molotovs, stood still, silent, watching the officers close in. Arnold tried to bolt, slammed straight into a cop, both tumbling to the ground. The rest were dragged down, cuffed, shoved into cruisers. Slow Joe lifted his head behind the metal bars of the window, staring out at the burning wreckage of his home, his mother's memory echoing inside him. For now, it was over.